Alright, welcome back to my channel. This is another episode of the trials and tribulations since I've got it back on the road. You'll see from the thumbnail and title that I avoided disaster, but really closely. Sorry for the, well, yeah, it was a bit clickbaity, but realistically this picture was almost very, very real. Let me show you what happened, and even more important, let's deal with it right now. So I'm driving along, having a great time, blasting down some B roads, giving the car plenty of stick. Everything's working great. I've got the window down, the tunes are playing, everything's cool. All of a sudden, the revs dropped, started misfiring, fluffing, and I noticed that my fuel pressure gauge, this one here, dropped to 0, and the warning light had illuminated, so I had no fuel pressure. Immediately smelt loads of petrol, like a really strong smell of petrol. So I killed the ignition, pulled the car to the side of the road, got out. I looked down the vents, I couldn't see any fire, which is my immediate worry. Like I say, like the smell of petrol was really bad, so I grabbed my fire stick, ran around the back of the car, long trail behind me of fuel. Fuck, running around the car, and looked underneath, and there was a big puddle of petrol underneath the car. So I popped the bonnet. So with the bonnet open, immediately established that there were no flames, no fire, which was fucking great news. Obviously a really strong smell of petrol, and I could see like vapor coming out of this area, like almost like smoke. I'm like, what the fuck's that? Now I knew obviously that the fuel pump was running because I could hear it when the ignition was back on, and the fuel pressure was 0. So somewhere all that fuel's leaking. It's an obvious, there's a trail of petrol behind me, there's a big puddle of petrol underneath the car. So I assumed it was leaking somewhere in this area. Now, earlier on in the build, I'd made this piece of beauty trim, really, I suppose. And it's a sheet of aluminium that I've folded and anodized black and mounted to the fuel injection rail. And it covers the fuel injectors and all the wiring and just makes it look a bit prettier. Fortunately, I carry a decent toolkit, so I got my tools out, undid the 4 screws that secure it to the fuel rail, and then I went to undo the bolt down here, which secures it to the cylinder head, and it was all loose. So I pulled it out. I thought, that's a bit odd, and it had actually fractured, leaving a bit still bolted to the head. So, what the fuck's going on there? So anyway, I discarded that, and now I can see the injectors and the loom, and it was all soaking wet down there by number 4, and I couldn't work out why. And then when I start pulling things, pull the injector harness off, and then quickly discovered that the fuel rail was actually loose and popped off. So let me just get some hoses out of the way and show you. Okay, so you can see I'm actually using the the current Bosch Motorsport type injectors, which are a low impedance injector, and they need a couple of adapters top and bottom because they're much shorter than the originals. And I could see that the fuel rail had lifted up and pissed fuel just like that, and the reason it had lifted up is because it had fractured there. Can you see that? Yeah, the fuel rail had snapped its mounting, and the fuel pressure had pushed the rail off the injector and pissed fuel fucking literally everywhere. And it was only really that shield that stopped it squirting up over the engine and possibly hitting a red hot downpipe and turbo. And like I say, it could have been just like that fucking AI picture that fortunately isn't real, but really bloody could have been. And I was in the middle of nowhere, stuck. So what I actually did was I was able to manipulate the injectors, the injector rail, back over and seal it on the O-ring. And then I strapped, because it's on like a 45-degree angle, I strapped the injector rail this way from left to right and up and down, and forced it on with a shitload of tie wraps that I had in my toolbox. And it allowed me to fire it up with no leaks and get it home. So this is an aftermarket billet aluminium fuel rail from a company called Enembo. I don't think they're trading anymore. And it's only got two mounts really. It's got this little one here, and there's not a lot to it, and that one there, and that's where it fractured, pulled off, and pissed fuel out past the O-rings. So here's the old fuel rail. This is the tab, the mounting tab that broke off. Looks like a stress fracture. So there's only two little tabs that hold this whole thing on, and they're not big at all, probably about 2.5 mil thick. That's what snapped off, allowing the fuel pressure to push it up and leak past the seals. These are the Bosch 1000cc injectors I'm using, which can be down rated to my kind of power levels, and then if I change my mind in the future, I'm sort of future proofed. I don't need to fuck about changing injectors or trying to find ancient Bosch greens or Bosch greys that put too much or too little fuel in, and avoid all the Chinese rip-offs as well. With these injectors, because they're much shorter than the old high impedance original Sierra injectors, you need these adapters, and they just take up a bit of space top and bottom. The old injectors are held on by these sort of like spring clips things on this rail, and now this is my new Nuke Performance billet rail. I can use the same top hat adapters, but they're held in by stainless keeper plates, so they're not coming out. You got two big beefy brackets, much wider, much thicker material. So hopefully that'll solve all my problems. Let's get it on and see how it goes. Okay, so my super fancy new Nuke Performance fuel rail has a bit of a problem. It doesn't fit. When I secured it onto the inlet manifold, it was at the wrong angle, and I can only assume, well, I've tested it and measured it, and I know it's these brackets. These are aluminium brackets, are machined from billet, so I can't really bend them without risk of cracking them, and I definitely don't want to do that because I don't want to repeat of that bollocks. So I've spoken to Nuke, and they've been really, really good, really, really helpful, and we've come to a bit of a deal. And I'm going to keep it. I'm going to make my own brackets, but they've looked after me. So anyway, that doesn't solve my immediate problem, which is getting this back on the road. So to get me on the road, I needed another solution that was quick and simple, and the obvious answer is just a standard fuel rail off a Cosworth, Escort, Sierra. It shouldn't matter. They're all pretty much the same. The problem with that is the fuel line fittings. Standards have like these quick disconnect fittings and plastic pipes, and I'm not running that. I'm running braided steel fuel lines all the way with aircraft type fittings. And a chap called Carl Bromley, absolute top bloke, came to my rescue with a Sierra 4x4 fuel rail, which had already been modified for aircraft type fittings. There's an AN6 fitting there, and an AN8 here. Bit unusual, they're usually a 6. So in any case, the standard fuel rail is mould steel, but it's got a lot of copper and nickel in it to give you this shiny appearance, and that means brazing it, welding it can be a problem. So the fittings need to be brazed on, and you can see the brass braze around that fitting, and again here at this joint. Once I'd fitted the injectors to the rail, the rail bolted straight on to the standard mounts with no gaps, perfectly in line, unlike the Nuke one. So I really don't know what was going on there. But this fitted first time, and everything slipped into place and lined up. The billet fuel rails have got the inlet at one end and the outlet at the other. So this end went straight on. It just screwed straight onto that AN6 fitting. But over here, I had to remake the fuel line, because instead of being on the end there, and the old fuel line come from the bulkhead, curled round and went into the end there. So I had to ditch that and make a new fuel line off the bulkhead, just down there. It curls round, comes up, and it does this U-bend here. So these are all high flow fittings. I've used an AN8 to AN6 adapter, and then an AN6 180 degree union into some new fuel pipe. And that's all connected up now. So the next thing is to put some fuel through it and check for leaks. I don't want to sit in the car, key over and hope for the best. Not after my last experience with fuel pissing everywhere. So a little precaution, and it'll only take me 5 minutes. I'll stuff some blue paper towel around all the fittings, and then I can sit in the car, flick the ignition on, let the fuel pump run, key it off, and just check that I've got no leaks before I start the engine and put some real pressure through it. So let me do that. So I got my blue towel, and it's at all the places where I've made a new joint. So the fuel at the bulkhead, the fuel inlet to the fuel rail, the fuel outlet, down to the fuel pressure regulator, and around each of the injectors, because I've had these in and out of their adapters with their O-rings about 14 times. I've been really careful not to nick any O-rings. I've inspected them, and I've used a bit of silicone spray just to ease them in. And Carl Bromley, the top bloke who supplied me with this rail, as well as cleaning it up, because it is a tougher 40-year-old car, he also pressure tested it before he'd sell it to me at a really good price, by the way. And so he's an absolute top bloke, so I'm not expecting any problems there. So yeah, so let's get in the car and key it over. Okay, let's key it on and build up some fuel pressure. The pump's running, it's pushed up to 45 psi, and the ECU only runs for a few seconds to prime the fuel pump, and that's what I want to do. I want to prime it, get some fuel in. You can see that the engine's stove cold. There's no oil temperature or oil pressure. At the moment, I'm just priming that pump so it builds up some pressure. You can hear the pump running in the background. You can see the needle moving. So that's pushing 45 psi fuel through. Let's have a look. So nothing on the outlet, nothing on the inlet, nothing around the bulkhead, and then the injectors. A bit more trouble getting the paper out, so nothing around there. And number 4, number 3 is clean. Number 2 and number 1, wicked. So we've run the fuel pressure, we got no leaks. So I'm going to start it. Yeah, I'm going to start it without the breather system on it. It shouldn't make any difference. And what it'll do, without the breather there, it'll allow me to see the fuel connection on the bulkhead when I've got some proper pressure going through it. Now the breather has two pipes going to the top. One's fed via this pipe, which is from the block, the port on the block, standard port under the inlet manifold. Then I've got this one, which comes from the top of the rocker cover. So they both breathe into this Bailey breather catch tank here, and these two big AN10 ports. Any excess air goes straight out this big bore hose to atmosphere underneath the car, and any oil caught by the separator inside, oil drains down to the sump. And I'll just take you under there so you can see. So yeah, so that's the port on the sump, so that's below oil level where it should be, and any oil from the catch can separator should drain down into there. So yeah, let's fire it up and hear it running for the first time in 5 weeks. Okay. Fuel pump's primed. Cool. We got a constant fuel pressure. Ticking over at 1,000 revs. There's no temp in the oil yet, but we've got plenty of oil pressure. Not making any boost, it's just idling. Let's have a look under the bonnet and check for leaks. Happy days. Okay, that sounds pretty sweet, and I've got no leaks. Let me turn it off before I gas myself to death. So that's it, the breather catch tank separator doofer is back in and all hooked up. It is close to where this fuel rail is, but there's plenty of gap. There's a good 10 mil there, and the engine rocks that way when it's revved, so there'll be no problems there. So yeah, good to go. I can get it out on the road again, which is what I like to do. I like to drive the thing, not just look at it. Now, I'm a bit undecided. I think it's a bit ugly, this standard fuel rail. I've got this bracket here, which originally would have been for the fuel pressure regulator. I don't need that. Obviously, I've got a Turbo Smart fuel pressure regulator down there with a fuel pressure switch in it to power the gauge and the ECU. And at the back, the pipework just looks a bit too busy, really. I'd much prefer it coming in the end. Now, I could modify this one so it comes in the end, but I think what I'll do is over the winter, I'll get that Nuke Performance one on and just make some new brackets so it fits properly. It's a shame about the shield. It wasn't just cosmetic. It did stop a lot of water getting in through the bonnet vents, both when I wash the car and when I'm driving it, but they are waterproof connectors, and standard Sierras and Escort Cosworths run perfectly fine without them being covered up. So I'll just have to live with that. At least the wiring's pretty neat. I don't know, what do you think? So I'm back looking again at this Nuke fuel rail, and in particular the injectors. So these are the Bosch Motorsport injectors. These are 1000cc versions. As I said earlier, they can be down rated to whatever horsepower and fuel level flow that you need. But they're much shorter in length than the original ones that you would have found back in the 80s and the 90s on Sierras. And so in order to use these, they sell these adapters which push on top and bottom, and they're both the same. And here they are on the 4x4 rail, okay? But when I had that fuel rail failure and it pulled off, there's a problem. The injectors itself have got a groove. You can see it just there, and it's meant for these injector clips. And the idea is the clip secures the injector into the rail. So if the rail was to pull off, it would just pull out from the bottom. Now underneath is switched, so the solenoid's there. Fuel's going to be going, and if there's a leak at this end, whether this is contact is open or closed, i.e. injecting. So even if the engine is off, right, let's put it simple, if the engine's off and this joint here or here breaks, fuel's going to piss out. And that's exactly what happened, because although the adapter is held into the rail with a clip, there's nothing securing the injector into the adapter, and it just pulls off. And that is what happened. That pulled out and fuel pissed past the O-ring. Nuke Performance, I didn't know this when I bought the rail, I found out after, sell their own adapters. And instead of these original ones like I've got, which are exactly the same for top and bottom, and I've just got a groove there to secure the top of the adapter into the fuel rail around this little ring here. That's how it works, look. There's a C-clip and it clips on the side of that flare and holds the adapter. Well, what they've done on the Nuke ones, they've replicated that flare. Okay, so now the injector, here's a one with a black clip on, the injector is clipped on securely to the top hat adapter, and then the adapter goes in the fuel rail and that gets clipped on, which is way better because it can't pull off. So I'm having a look at these, and the Nuke fuel rail, instead of these Bosch clips, I've got a selection of silver ones and black ones. They're all the same. The Nuke fuel rail holds the injector on with this. So instead of a spring clip, which can flick off, although it's unlikely, this is much more secure and it's bolted on and it goes in the groove of that adapter. So you pop that in, up that hole, and then this clip goes on over the gap and you secure it up with 2 bolts, and then the adapter's secured to the rail and the injector's secured to the adapter. And the bottom adapter is different as well. So that's just the bit that goes in the inlet manifold. So you can see there. Now, I've had a measure, and there's actually a difference in height overall when that's pushed in. I can't do it one-handed, but trust me, when that's pushed in, this is longer than that one, only by a few millimeters. So that might have an effect on why this Nuke fuel rail wasn't fitting. I still think it's the brackets. I'm going to go and check that in a minute. But I just thought I'd mention it, that the Nuke adapters for the Bosch injectors are much more secure and a much nicer design, if I'm honest. So there we go. So let's have a little look. The fuel rail is on. I've connected it all up, leak tested it with my blue paper towel, no leaks. I've had the car running, I've actually took it for a drive and everything's all good. So it turns out that it was the height of the injector adapters that was stopping the Nuke fuel rail from fitting. Now the Nuke fuel rail is designed specifically for the modern Bosch EV14 injectors and the Nuke performance adapters. And once you've got the Nuke performance adapters on the modern Bosch injectors with the Nuke fuel rail, everything fits perfectly and the brackets line up. Now I notice I've got an extra mounting point. So on two-wheel drive Sierras, the plenum chamber is different. In fact, they're all got slight differences. So the two-wheel drive uses the mounting at the back, this one, and a mounting point here. And then on a 4x4 plenum chamber, the fuel rail's different because it uses that mount at the back and it uses this mount here. So it's either the mount at the back and then either that one's a two-wheel drive mounting point and that one's a four-wheel drive mounting point. Now, some aftermarket plenums come with two, and this plenum, which isn't an aftermarket one, it's actually the small turbo Escort Cosworth plenum, has got both as well. And because Nuke make this fuel rail to fit either the two or the four-wheel drive, these bosses here and here, which accept the mounting brackets, are already machined into the fuel rail. So I thought, well, I ordered another bracket off Nuke and it bolts onto the mounting at the back, and I had to drill and tap this because it wasn't drilled or tapped on my plenum because it wasn't normally used. And I could use 3 brackets and plus the one at the back. So now it's like super secure. They're much thicker, much stronger than the Anembo ones. And I think it's a lot better looking than the 4x4 one. You haven't got that big ugly boss anymore for the fuel pressure regulator. The fuel line comes in at the end, so it's nice and neat, and I haven't got all that busyness around by me catch tank and breather system. And generally, it looks really nice and neat. So yeah, so I'm calling that job done in the end. So that's pretty much the end of this video. Hope you found it interesting. If nothing else, it's certainly it was an eye-opener for me, and I'm glad that that AI picture wasn't actual reality, because it bloody could have been. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out the rest of the videos I've already done in the back catalogue, if you like, if you just view my channel, and you can see the rest of them. And I look forward to reading your comments, and I'll see you next time. Thanks very much.